Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We are reading from Bhagavad-Gītā as it is, chapter number 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, and texts number 4 to 6. So we can chant together text number 4. Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhav Arisudana Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhara Visudana Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhar Arisudana
Arjuna Vacha Katam
Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhar Arisudana
Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhar Arisudana
Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhar Arisudana Arjuna Vacha Katam Bhishmamaham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyokshami Pujarhar Arisudana
Arjuna Vacha. Arjuna said, Katam, how? Bhishma, Aham, I, Sankhye, in the fight, Drona, Cha, also, Madhusudana, O killer of Madhu, Ishubhi, with arrows, Pratiyokshami, shall counterattack, Puja Arho, of those who are worshipable, Arisudana, O killer of the enemies. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Arjuna said, O killer of the enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counteract with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship. Purport. Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counterattack them? Would Krishna ever attack his own grandfather, Ugrasena, or his teacher, Sandipani Muni? These were some of the arguments offered by Arjuna to Krishna. Guru nahatva himara mahanuvavam sreyo bhaktam vaiksham api haloke hatvarta kamam tu guru niheva vunjaya bhogam radira praditam. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Purport. According to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they should have not accepted such a position simply on financial considerations. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers. But Arjuna thinks that nevertheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them would mean to enjoy the spoils tainted with blood. Na chaitat vidmat kartaran nagoryo navaji jayema yadi vano jayayo yan eva hatvana jiji visashams tevastika pramuke tartarashtraha. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we would not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport. Arjuna did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there any certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities, combined with the faith in the words of the instruction of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes, over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruhu Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sinitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalitam Shri Visakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gauraki Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Krishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchaprabhutarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Arjuna Uvacha Katam Vishnamaham Sanjay Drolam Cha Madhusudana Vishubhipati Yosyami Puja Harabari Sudana Guru Nahatvahi Mahana Bhavan Shreyo Bhaktam Vaisham Api Haloke Hatvarta Kamam Stu Guru Nihaiva Puntiya Bhogan Rudira Pradiktam Na Chaitat Vidma Kartaram Nagaryo Na Vajayema Yadi Vano Chayehu Yane Vahatva Na Jiji Visamas Te Vastita Pramuke Tartarastra. Arjuna said, O killer of the enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the costs of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we would not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So in the first two verses, Srila Prabhupada is making some comments on the basics of the Vedic etiquette and Vedic standards about treating of superiors. So he's made the comment in the first one that a superior should not even be attacked verbally, let alone killed. Srila Prabhupada also points out that someone who's in a superior position can be rejected if he commits an abominable action. But Arjuna does not even consider such an option. So just on this point, I have a small section from Harinam Chintamani where Haridas Thakur explains this point when he's talking about offences to the Guru. He says, when should a Guru be rejected? It may happen that through asat sangha, a Guru may lose his qualifications. And then later, if a Guru takes unsuitable people for disciples, he will have to suffer for that. And if a disciple takes an unqualified Guru, he will accordingly suffer. In order to avoid these misfortunes, one should be cautious. On the other hand, as long as both guru and disciple are properly qualified, the relationship will continue. Ideally, this relationship is eternal, but if a disciple becomes bad, the guru must reject him, and if the guru becomes bad, the disciple must reject him. Otherwise, both may fall, and better one than both. So this is the standard that's given in the Vedic literatures, that if a guru is fallen, then one should reject him. So, therefore, Arjuna is quite in his right position if he was to say, quite rightly, that Bhishma and Drona have, well, he has said, they're looking for financial gain, they're looking for maintenance, and therefore they've sided with Duryodhana. And on that basis, he should have by rights rejected them. But Srila Prabhupada is explaining in verse number 6 purport that this quality of Arjuna shows his high qualifications. Srila Prabhupada is saying that all these considerations definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. So Arjuna was considering, again in verse number 6, there was another consideration that even if he killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana and all his brothers on the battlefield, then he would not care to live. So this type of compassion is similar to what we also see in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Draupadi was ready to forgive Ashvatthama, Dronacharya's son, because he killed all of her sons while they were sleeping. And so this compassion is similar, because in this Vedic culture, people are truly virtuous, which is something that we really don't have much familiarity when we come, particularly from the Western countries. And even here in India, the standards are not the same as they were before. So this compassion that, and we can also see in both of them the control of the senses, which is the most important point that Srila Prabhupada is making in this purport. That when something like this situation is happening, like for Draupadi, her sons had just been killed and she was in great grief, and yet she had such control of her senses to think of what was morally correct to do. So this is a point that Srila Prabhupada is making in this purport, that control of the senses is making Arjuna qualified for liberation. First, unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge, and without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. I just made a few notes so I don't lose my train of thought. So we know throughout the Bhagavad-Gītā, there's talking about control of the senses as being important. But I found a couple of sections specifically relating to control of the senses being a prerequisite for spiritual knowledge. First in this chapter itself, starting from text number 57. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So in this selection of verses, the Sanskrit word that is being translated variously as perfect knowledge and perfect consciousness and something else as well, is pragya. following verse uses the same word, and Srila Prabhupada translates it as perfect consciousness. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within his shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada then follows with how this is possible. Vijaya vinivartante nirahara shadehinaha rasavarjan rasopyasa param drishya nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. And again, the same word pragya comes up again several times. In 61, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness on me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So in this word, pragya is consciousness again. And then there's the fall down sequence for those who do not control their senses. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pole. So Krishna is directly relating this control of the senses to intelligence. And again in text number 68, the same word pragya is used again. Therefore, O mighty Amda Arjuna, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. So there's a complete section here where Krishna identifies the control of the senses as being a very important prerequisite for spiritual intelligence. And of course the fourth chapter, being about transcendental knowledge, also has something about linking control of the senses with intelligence, spiritual knowledge. In 4:10, Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya manupasritaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past have become purified by knowledge of me, and thus they have all attained transcendental love for me. So the direct link is there, as being shown by Krishna, how the control of the senses is an important point that brings us to the point of transcendental knowledge. So one other point that I thought it was very important to mention is that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is also giving us Arjuna's qualifications to take shelter of the Guru, which is what happens in verse number 7 in tomorrow's verse. But so at the end of the first chapter, Srila Prabhupada in the last sentence of the purport on the first chapter says something also about Krishna's qualifications. Text number 46. So this was in response to Sanjaya replying, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. So in the last sentence of this first chapter, purport, Srila Prabhupada says, such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. So there's some qualifications here for being a fit candidate to seek a guru. Here, his soft-heartedness, and in today's verse, verse number 6, his control of the mind and senses. So in the beginning of the purport to text number 7, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that in the second sentence, in the second sentence, in every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. So Arjuna is in this state of perplexity, completely. We discussed a few days ago how someone like Duryodhana, who was quite demoniac, thought that he could come up with all the answers by his own diplomacy. First he praised Bhishma, and then he praised his other generals so that they wouldn't feel left out and would also fight enthusiastically. So in this way he was thinking that by just adding more and more diplomacy, he would be able to solve his problems and inspire everybody to come to victory. But here, what we've been seeing in the end of the first chapter and in the beginning of this chapter is that Arjuna had tried very hard with all his knowledge, all his wisdom, to try and work out what the correct course of action was. He considered his responsibility as a leader, that he shouldn't lead to the downfall of society. He considered his own situation, that he shouldn't take the kingdom at the cost of his cousin brothers, and considered so many things. But now he's in this state of perplexity. Now he's realized that what he knows is not sufficient. It's not going to give the answers. So this is very important, that in order to inquire from a spiritual master, we have to inquire. We have to inquire submissively, and we have to be looking for an answer. So we have to come to this point of realizing that our own knowledge, our own intelligence, our own answers are insufficient to solve the problems of life. Srila Prabhupada's making the point in the purport to text 7, that material life is all about problems, perplexity. This is what material life is all about. We solve one problem, and then another problem comes, and we keep trying and we keep trying. But to take full advantage of the shelter of a spiritual master, we have to actually inquire sincerely and seriously. So that's the point that Arjuna's come to, and he's come to it very strongly. He's completely, it's been discussed a lot in the classes, how Arjuna's qualification, he's a Kshatriya. He's the son of a demigod. He's an incarnation of a demigod. He's in a royal family, and he's so qualified. He knows the Dharma Shastras, he knows all the Shastras. But despite all of this, he's given up, and he's given away his Gandiva bow, which is so important to him, by which he can get victory. So this is very dramatic exhibition of how we have to give up all that we think we know can solve our problems, like our intelligence, like our bank balance, like our visa or our passport, like being attached to a particular place, to a particular service. We have to give all these up. And the interesting thing is how Krishna has brought about this situation. If we consider our role in service to Guru, Gauranga and Krishna is to try and preach, then we can learn from Krishna, who is the master preacher. So he deliberately brought Arjuna. When Arjuna said, "Bring me between the two armies," he deliberately brought him in front of his teachers, in front of Drona and Bhishma. And so he could see everybody who he was against. And then he said, "Behold the Gurus before you." He's saying, this is your family members. So Krishna, because he's of course the perfect teacher, but the preacher that we can learn from is he's found that exact thing that will bring Arjuna to this point of wanting to know more. This point that's in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, Atata Brahma Jigyasa. We should inquire into Brahman. We should inquire beyond this material world. But for one who is material attached, we have to come to this point of realizing that our material solutions will no longer work. They won't solve our problems. They just patch up. They take us from one problem to the next. So at this point, I was remembering one story that I've heard a couple of times of Srila Prabhupada walking along, I think perhaps the waterfront in Melbourne, but I remember it was in Melbourne, that he was walking with some devotees on a morning walk, and they were passing some businessmen who were very, very seriously off to their office, and the devotees were thinking, wow, so materially attached, and you know, there's no hope. And then later on Prabhupada revealed, he said, I wonder how we can preach to these people. So this is the role of the preacher, to find what it is in someone's situation that can bring them to this point of being serious about inquiring into what is beyond the material life. So in this respect, I've got some quotes about the spiritual master. So the first one, the one that comes up in Nectar of Devotion as evidence, because in Nectar of Devotion there are 64 devotional practices are given. And Rupa Goswami gives the first 3 as being the most important, as accepting a spiritual master, taking initiation from him, and then serving him. So the quote that he gives in the support of this is from one of the Yogendras, Prabhupada. Just as he's finished describing to King Nimi the futility of material life. Tasmad Gurum Prapajeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam Shakte Parecha Nishnatam Brahmanyupas Manashrayam. Therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter from him by initiation. The qualification of a bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. So the first prerequisite is to understand that material solutions to material problems are simply not going to work. To understand this complete futility of trying to advance materially. And then we take shelter of a bona fide guru. Of course we have to search a bona fide guru. In Bhagavad-Gītā 4:34, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti tegyanam gyaninas tattvadarshana. In order to receive transcendental knowledge, one must approach the spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. And the same qualification is there. They can reveal transcendental knowledge to you because they have seen the truth. And so there are many quotes, and they all stress this fact that we're looking from the Guru for transcendental knowledge, from transcendental realization, from the real solution to life's problems. There was this one, there is another one. Okay, this one is from Mundaka Upanishad. Tad Vijnanartum Sagurum Iva Vigachet Samat Pani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. To learn the transcendental subject matter, one must approach a spiritual master. In doing so, he should carry fuel to burn in sacrifice. The symptom of such a spiritual master is that he is expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion, and therefore he constantly engages in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in the Nectar of Devotion, in the second activity of the pure devotee in devotional service, is to take initiation from the spiritual master. And the evidence for this is quoted by Rupa Goswami in the same section in the Srimad Bhagavatam from Prabhupada of the 9 Yogendras, where he says that one must see the Guru as being as good as God, because he's a representative of God. So Prabhupada, of course, makes the point that we don't see him, we see him as good as God, but we don't treat him exactly as if he is God. We treat him as God, but we don't believe that he's God. And this is perfectly explained in the Svetashvara Upanishad. Yasya deve parabhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyata katita yata prakashante mahatmanaha. Only to those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So this faith in both the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord is developed through the relationship of the Guru. So this is the point where we are in the Bhagavad-Gītā. By Krishna's expert guidance, Arjuna has been brought to this position where he no longer finds any solution from his own knowledge of the religious shastras. And he is very well qualified to know the religious shastras and the proper etiquette and everything else. But he no longer finds any solution. So he's looking for the right answer. And of course his friend is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he automatically chooses the right person to accept as a spiritual master, because he knows Krishna is always there for him. So we can, just in summary, we can learn from this about our surrender to our Guru. How much are we actually in this position of not trying anymore to solve things with our own ideas and our own solutions. And also in trying to help others, how can we bring others to this point of understanding that there is no material solution to material problems. So at this point I'd like to invite some comments, questions, corrections, contributions. Hare Krishna.
I just had a comment.
Yes.
Related to the last point you were making. Sachinandan Swami, in one of the classes at the Govardhan retreat, was talking about how in order to create a solid spiritual foundation, you can think of a building, like if you're going to construct a new building, you need to first remove the previous one. So that's why we need to pray that, like while we're doing our spiritual activities, to really sincerely pray that Krishna helps us take down the old stuff, the old building, so that we can create this solid spiritual foundation from which we can build the new structure. So I thought that was very nice.
Good, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Krishna.
I just another point.
Up to this point, it doesn't look like he's doing anything else, except that he looks like he's still trying to appeal to all kinds of dharma. It doesn't seem like he's trying to do anything to look to Krishna so far. Until the next verse, I guess. Maybe the next verse after that. Yeah. He's definitely perplexed. But it's taken him a while to get really perplexed. And he's sort of run out of good reasons.
At this point he's really perplexed.
So, people ordinarily experience that. I think the word they usually give it is denial. I think they're in a state of denial.
Denial works for many, many things.
So, but generally, our problems, our personal problems, aren't so fantastic when you consider where he is, where he's standing, and what the situation is. This is a real problem. Our problems in comparison are very puny. So somehow or other, we always still think that our problems are the worst problems, even though somebody else might have a worse problem. But it looks like Arjuna has a really tough problem here. Because he's so well trained in becoming a king. He's a prince, becoming a king, and he's just in a situation where he's never had to make a decision like this before, and somehow or other, because of the way the Indian, let's say, Vedic social system is constructed, there's all kinds of gurus, and they all have great respect. The elders have respect. guru of this has respect, the guru of that has respect. But we don't come from that kind of background. We don't have any respect. We don't really know what it means to respect. So I don't even think the normal person who reads this Bhagavad-Gītā, unless they come from a very classic Vedic background, can even understand what this means. You're in front of all the people that you respect, and there's a certain etiquette. We don't understand even what the etiquette is. We speak of respect. So this is a very difficult situation. And he is about to give up all this, trying to find a solution system, which is a lot harder than what we have to do, because we don't even have anything as a structure. We just have our own mind and our own sense of false ego that we consider that we're also very important people and that we are the center of the universe, and therefore everything should go as according to our plans. But he doesn't come from that background. He comes from a whole different system. So my comment is just simply that it's very hard for us, from our lack of training and lack of background, to even understand how intense this situation is for him.
Yeah.
So
exactly, and because this situation is so intense, he was able to surrender to his spiritual master so fully that within an hour he could get the solution. But because of our lack of training, we take shelter of the spiritual master, but we have trouble surrendering. Surrendering comes a little later, and it's a gradual process. And it's something we have to keep working on, because otherwise this false ego of ours keeps coming up and keeps saying, I can find the solution and I'm still the center of the universe. So obviously Prabhupada, because he exhibited such compassion, he managed to instill love and therefore surrender in his disciples. And it's something at this point that some of us are having trouble to emulate, but I think it's very good to look at this example of Arjuna. And Srila Prabhupada is trying to explain the etiquette for us in the purports. As purport by purport, he's trying to explain this etiquette so we can get some idea. And if we can at least a little bit understand how much Arjuna is perplexed and understand how much surrender actually means, then we can have a goal of surrender, even if we can't make it just now. It's kind of, initiation is the beginning, and for many of us, the spiritual master is so kind, and he's not saying you have to completely surrender before I give you initiation. He's allowing it to be a gradual process. But it's our responsibility to keep our mind on the goal of full surrender and full service, full dedication to service of the spiritual master, without any ifs or buts, or but I like this, or but I don't like this, like that. So it's important to try and understand, even though it's incredibly difficult for us to understand. Prabhu, you had a question.
Hare Krishna. It's written here that Prabhupada has written what he has written is absolutely correct. But still, Bhishma and Drona are obliged to take side of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they should not have accepted such a position. Dronacharya, rightly, yes, he came for the financial help. But Bhishma, he took a vouch. It was not much of a financial help that he was...
Yeah, exactly, not for financial help. But this was again going back to the etiquette, because he was the leader of this family, isn't it? He was there because he's the leader of this family. And by hook or by crook, Dhritarashtra got the position of the king. So it's similar, like after the battlefield, then Dhritarashtra is in the home of the Pandavas, because he's got nowhere else to go either. You know, it's kind of until they come to the point of actually Dhritarashtra eventually took Vanaprastha and went off to the forest. But otherwise he was living in the home of his enemies as well. Because this etiquette is there that this is the family home, this is where you live. So it's not so much a financial consideration for
the
him.
vouch.
Yeah.
Vouch for it, that he will look up to the Kaurva kingdom and not leave it that till it is fully established.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
yeah, so Prabhupada is for us simplifying it, because in the Bhagavad-Gītā he's not explaining to us the whole Mahabharata. So just as, Any other comments or questions? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sometimes it's amazing to think how Vishnu Pitana, he is a Maharan, he knows everything, and still he takes the side of Kaurva. It's not financial or his own vow. He is Maharan, so, and he still takes the wrong side.
Yeah, but then look at this. I mean, this is I've been looking at Srila Prabhupada's classes on Nectar of Devotion, and this is the example he gives most often to explain the relationships, the rasas between the devotee and Krishna. The relationship of Bhishma, he's a Mahajan, he's a great devotee. His relationship with Krishna in the battlefield is one of chivalry. And Srila Prabhupada, I've been reading through these lectures, and again he's using this example of Bhishma and how because of his position as a great devotee, this rasa is enjoyed because they're adversaries on the battlefield.
Yeah, that means the deep meaning. Because Krishna wanted to enjoy Surya Rasa with Vishnu Pitama, who has to have another side.
Yeah. Krishna responds to our mood of service. This is revealed in Bhagavad-Gītā. So, because Bhishma was in this mood of chivalry, therefore Krishna orchestrated a situation where they could enjoy this rasa.
Yeah. Higher reason.
Yeah, a higher reason.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to Mata?
Yeah.
You mentioned that Arjuna was on a very culturally elevated standpoint. He was in this dilemma of people he worshipped, respected very deeply, and he's having to...
I didn't say it was a culturally undeveloped person.
No, I said he's very developed. He's... Yeah. So I didn't say undeveloped, I said developed. So, question is, a person who is not developed, would he be able to relate to, because Arjuna is doing it from a deeply felt platform, and he's getting Bhagavad-Gītā. Would a person who is not so, doesn't have that background, would it apply, or would he first need to become more elevated?
I'm going to answer that. Well, one way of looking at it is, I think it was in a Bhagavatam class a couple of days ago. Regardless of your varna and your ashram, you can still become Krishna conscious. It doesn't matter, you just stick with what your qualifications are, and you are obedient to the spiritual master and the orders of Krishna. And I think that's what gets you over the humps, so you can make spiritual advancement.
Comment over this side. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
also because the way all of the questions...
You have to use the microphone, because we're on the FM and we're on the internet.
Okay. Because of the way all of the questions and answers were presented in the Bhagavad-Gītā, they were specifically meant for those who didn't have the same aptitude as Arjuna, and therefore it becomes very clear even to neophytes by listening to the questions and hearing the response, the proper actions to take in each of these situations. So Arjuna was already self-realized. He was standing there in front of Krishna. You know, he was his dear friend. But for the benefit of all of humanity, the Bhagavad-Gītā is spoken again and again and again and again for us to listen and then take what we can from that and hopefully surrender. So it's all for us. It's not that Arjuna needed it, it was for us.
You want to answer your own question?
I just
You
thought
ask
your
the question,
point.
you have to have the answer.
I just thought your point was very nice.
Okay, is there any other comments, additions, questions? Jagat Guru Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you very much.